This is a second district meeting for the Republicans in the second district. My name is Tom McCarron. We have a couple speakers here today that are on a really hot topic, and if you want to know how hot it is, it's right there on the top page of Daily Oklahoma today. And my wife's a teacher, and Lordy, I get it every night. Every night I get what's going on. She tells me.
What's the headline say? I can't see it.
It says A to F grades districts get report cards. And I would guess they roll out, I don't know, we'll find out later. I'd like to go on. I have two ladies here today. I'm very fortunate to get these ladies. We have Janet Barresi, which is the present Education Secretary. Well, not Education Secretary. Janet? Okay, yeah, help me out. Yeah, Superintendent of Education. And I have Linda Murphy, that is not a declared candidate as of yet, but she is exploring it pretty heavily. And like I said a while ago, these grades, it's a very hot topic right now. Very. I mean, Janet probably thinks it's pretty white hot, pretty much. And so I'd like to go ahead and ask Linda if you'd come on up and tell us what you're thinking. Linda ran, let me go ahead and tell this. Linda ran in 94 and 98. She lives in Broken Arrow, and she got really close to winning it on one of those.
She ran for what? Yes.
Yeah. For the superintendent, state superintendent. Yeah, against Sandy Garrett. And whoa, I was pulling for her. I didn't care. I want that lady in red now. Lordy. So Linda, if you would come on up. And after they've given we're going to take a few questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
A few questions. I'll cut off after we'll cut off.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate being here. On a nice rainy day when we could all do many other things, right? But we have to take care of the business of our country, our state, our counties, our towns, our communities. When I ran for state superintendent of schools in 1994, I lived in Fort Gibson, so I was a member of 2nd Congressional District, Republican Party. And it was some hard ground to plow. So I have to start out saying, thank you, 2nd District, hardworking people, and thank the Lord we have two parties operating in the 2nd District of the state of Oklahoma. When I ran before, I was told by the establishment, if I may say, and I must say, to explain what I'm talking about today, the establishment of the party from Washington and out of a few, in Oklahoma City, in the state party. We write off the 2nd District because it's Democrat, we don't go for that. Well, I traveled the 2nd District. I traveled the state, all 77 counties. And with less than $100,000, I nearly beat the incumbent state superintendent. I don't remember what she spent, but it was way more than that. We can look back on the records and find that. But 49.5% of the vote statewide gave us a place at the table for the grassroots of Oklahoma to say, we do not want top-down control of education. We do not want Hillary Care, which was in the works at the time, and we do not want national control of education. Well, here we are again. Now we have Obamacare, and we have Obamacare. Unfortunately, Obama is not the key or the front person in the issue of driving the agenda for Common Core and the reform of education that lines up with it. Common Core state standards are standards, period. They are just standards. But anyone with common sense and every teacher that has any professional knowledge about what they're doing knows that your curriculum will align with the standards. And in addition, we now have a new astringent, demanding system of accountability in testing that students will not be graduated, they will not pass without passing these tests. Now, am I against accountability? Heavens no. When I ran for office before, I ran for strong academic standards and local control. That pretty well says it all. I have to add now common sense policies, which you'd think would be there without saying, but unfortunately are not at this time. I get calls daily, I get emails, I speak in meetings across the state, and because I invested so much effort back then, I stayed in office with Governor Keating, who appointed me Secretary of Education following that run for state superintendent. But at that time, back to the Democrat versus the Republican growth now, at that time we had 12 Democrats on the Senate Education Committee, 5 Republicans. You probably don't even have to know to guess the story. The Democrats all voted against me, the Republicans voted for me, but Governor Keating and I made a statement that this voice would be heard at the table. He told the press she eats nails for breakfast. Well, I pretty much had to, because you don't get through that if you don't. And I've had some years of rest away from the political arena. I haven't been, out there working this hard all this time. For one main reason, we elected George W. Bush president, and we love him in so many ways, but I do not love him in the area of education. He passed No Child Left Behind. That is federal control of education and the testing system that every state in the union, I think now, is trying to get out of and has gotten out of with waivers, which helped the Obama administration set up a nice little carrot and stick competition called Race to the Top. Race to the Top grant was written by our former state superintendent, Sandy Garrett's approval as elected state superintendent. She didn't have to put her name on it, I don't think, but she was the elected state superintendent. Governor Henry had Kathy Taylor, who is has just lost her race for mayor in Tulsa against Republican Joe Barresi. And Kathy Taylor wrote the Race to the Top grant in Governor Henry's office. That grant was paid, the expenses for Kathy Taylor, according to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce newsletter, Kathy Taylor was paid by George Kaiser, Kaiser Francis Oil. You've heard of Solyndra, you've heard of his involvement there, how that went down in flames, the taxpayers got the bill, the millions. Bank of Oklahoma, big time liberal, Democrat, progressive education push. He said on CBS News a couple of months ago, which I reported, an interview with him regarding his support of Educator. He has funded Educator early childhood in Tulsa. President Obama toured it when he came to Tulsa. He referred to Oklahoma as being advanced in the nation in early childhood, and he always points to the Educator program in Tulsa, which Kaiser has funded. We funded some out of our legislature, which some people are looking at very closely now. $10 million a year go in our State Department of Ed budget, and some of our legislators who oppose Common Core and are looking at all of this would like to get that out because it doesn't have to be paid, but some people thought it had to if there was an agreement legally. There isn't. That $10 million needs to stop. George Kaiser can spend his money wherever he wants to. That's not a problem. We love free enterprise, people making money, capitalism, but they should not drive public policy. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a marriage of corporate and governmental entities and officials agreeing to public-private partnerships. That's what Common Core is. I'll tell you more. Kathy Taylor wrote the Race to the Top grant, and in that we had to comply. It's called a competitiveness grant for competition to get the money. So here's the carrot, several $1 million, I don't remember, doesn't matter, millions of dollars for the state of Oklahoma. We're competing to get it. But to compete, not to get it, but to compete, you have to comply with putting things in place in advance. So we did that. Our legislature passed, on recommendation by Sandy Garrett, Governor Henry, they passed law that put Common Core in state law. But it didn't spell it out. No one knew what it was. In fact, the Common Core state standards weren't written. I wrote an editorial in the Daily Oklahoman, which by the mercy of God they ran, because they're really pushing Common Core and people that support it. But they did run my editorial on July the 3rd, and it's out there. And I called, the title of it is something like, States Led into Common Core Deception. It is deception. It was deception. And I think a lot of well-meaning people have participated in a part of this big plan, which is now coming together. But it was like that with outcomes-based education, except that was federal law and it was exposed nationally through the federal law, and it was a Clinton administration federal law that they were pushing. So we had congressmen fighting it too. Now it's come down through the National Governors Association and the Chief State School Officers Association. So as I have said to Janet personally, no offense, and personally I can appreciate the sincerity of trying to do this in a way that gives us local control. But I know it does not give us local control. We are losing local control with Common Core. We have Common Core state standards. We have testing that align. And when that process is completely in place, there will be no choice except 15%, I think it's written into the plan, that we can adjust. But if you look at the curriculum that's being produced through Pearson, which is a major publication company, through McGraw-Hill, another one, Houghton Mifflin, another one. These are companies I've used as a teacher in the classroom. I've been certified over 25 years by the State Department of Education. By the way, I've taught public school, just so you do know. If you don't know me, a lot of you know me, but I better say that to explain. I've taught in the public school classroom. I worked with a private clinical setting with an optometrist working with visually related learning problems, children who had visual learning problems because of their visual control, which was poorly developed. So now in Common Core, what we're getting, reports from kindergarten teachers, first grade, second grade, and preschool, pre-K, where they're pushing the Common Core standards this year. It's barely started in some schools right now. They're not doing the whole full-blown thing, so you're not going to hear a lot of this everywhere yet. But I have friends and family who teach in various places. I have people I went to college with. I have people I've met through working with education before when I ran. So I have a lot of contacts across the state. And here's the summary of it. Kindergarten, first grade, and even pre-K in some places are having to do things with writing, reading informational text that are not interesting. When children are learning to read up through third grade, they should love to read. They should read things they want to read. They should not be required, directed, even if they get a choice between A and B, it might be mush or oatmeal, instead of a book about Johnny and his puppy dog that ran down to the river and threw a rock. That's what little boys want to hear about and read. Literature is being cut out in the Common Core state standards. It requires 30%, I'm told, by some, 50% by others, and Janet can set us straight on that. But in the kindergarten, first grade, those percentages are required informational reading. Now, informational, when you get into the literature produced for it, and what Utah, New York, California, Colorado, and other states are reporting, the literature they're getting from these major well-known companies, not some off-the-wall, fly-by-night publisher. These Common Core aligned curriculum have things about the United Nations, about government from a democracy view instead of a constitutional republic. And a lot of people don't know the difference because we've heard democracy so much, it sounds fine. And there is a democratic element to our government, but we have a constitution. We have a constitution. We're a republic. And we should not have the kind of top-down control that we're getting with this system. Common Core state standards will align with curriculum, will align with testing, and nobody can control that unless we unhook from all of that and make our own decisions in our state. Right now, the testing, the 34.45, it's reported $1 million contract that was just approved by the state school board last week or just recently, goes to Measured Progress. Is a company on their website. They say they work with the two consortium, which are the National Testing Consortium. Oklahoma joined one through Janet Barresi through the Chief State School Officers Association. Some of them went to one, some of them went to the other. Partnership for Assessment of Readiness for Careers in Colleges. You know, all of these marketing terms sound good. Accountability, you know, readiness for careers in colleges, of course we want that. But we need to see the philosophy of what we're putting in place. And beyond that, if we cleaned up all the curriculum, I still don't want top-down control of education. I want local control. We need to elect our state school board. We should not have an appointed state school board that has to approve pretty much unless they have a lot of time to read and research, and then they're going to oppose the governor that appointed them. Now, we all know that Mary Fallon is our governor, Republican governor, and Mary has been a friend of mine. I say has, and I'll say is if she'll say is, but I don't know how she feels about what I'm doing right now. I don't know if she understands. And I would like to sit with her and talk about this more personally. But in 1994, we ran statewide, side by side, across the state of Oklahoma, and she agreed with everything I said. This is the same thing again, but it's reworked through the NGA. At the National Governors Association, she's the chairman, you know, recently inaugurated into that, or taken that seat. And she has an initiative called America Works. In the America Works initiative, it is school to work. I had several newspaper reporters come to me and say, this is school to work, isn't it? I said, yes, it is school to work. Now, will their top board allow them to write it? Maybe not, but they know it because they covered it before. And school to work is controlling job matching with education as the data is fed into the state longitudinal data system. Job matching, we're not there yet. Some people say we're not going there. They better read all the documents. Because I was the Deputy Commissioner of Labor for 2.5 years following my time in Governor Keating's office. I went there to work under Commissioner Renaud, who appointed me, because on the federal level, Bill Clinton had put together, combined, he said it publicly, the Department of Labor and the Department of Education. Robert Reich, Labor, Richard Riley, Education. That combination brought together the policy for education and workforce development, labor market. The workforce investment boards are not yet tied into all of this, but that is the plan. If you want to read the plan that Hillary Clinton, and she may run for president, we know the Democrat Party's lining up behind her. Since this is a Republican meeting, I think it's very important to say that. And this was initiated out of the Clinton administration before he ran for president while he was in Arkansas, governor of Arkansas. Bill Clinton was the chairman of the NGA himself, what Mary Fallon is chairman of now. That agenda was there then, it's still there. Renamed, they know it has to be renamed because we rejected it. In 1995, I went to the NGA meeting in Chicago. Governor Keating sent me as his representative on education. He kept me as an education advisor in his office following the Democrat rejection of his appointment of me in the Senate Education Committee. And Governor Keating knew what I would say. He heard me for 1.5 years on the campaign trail, just like Mary Fallon did, and Mary agreed with me everywhere we were, all the time, all the way through, congratulated me all the way through. So I hope when I talk with her, she will understand what I'm saying, because the literature is there. You don't have to take my word for it. You can go to the internet. There are many experts all over the country pointing out the policies that are exactly aligned. So, back to the NGA meeting in Chicago. I was there, Mark Tucker was there. He is the president or the director of the National Center for Education and the Economy. Mark Tucker said that we need to not be so concerned about academics, reading, writing, and math skills, as we do about workforce and employers' needs in the workplace. Well, that is what Janet Barresi's talked about on KRMG. We need to meet the needs of business and industry. Thank you. And of course, we do need to meet needs of business and industry. But I want my child, the friends of mine who have children, everyone I know in the state of Oklahoma, to have an education system that produces an educated child, a person, a human being that is an individual, not with the program ideas that are being implemented through Common Core. And I can't have enough time today, and I don't want to take enough time to try to explain all that, so I won't. You'll have to read it for yourself. There's a lot out there. But to summarize, the Republican Party in Oklahoma has grown. We are nearly at a point of even and majority. We're going past even to majority. Barely, but we're moving along. And if we look at that on a grid, we can see that tremendous change. Why has that happened? Because we have ideas and beliefs about small government. We have ideas and beliefs about individuality. Yes, we want responsible citizens. We want teachers and schools and parents to be accountable. But we're not going to hold them accountable with the government in the home. We're not going to hold them accountable by making a narrow curriculum, which Common Core is, and requiring kids to pass that narrow curriculum to be graduated. The bottom up and the top down is what Common Core does. It requires harder, faster access, or not access, but achievement of the skills that a child might get in 3rd or 4th grade or pushed down. So we have 1st graders being required to write whole sentences when they can't spell, they can't write the words yet. We've got to build the foundations in math. The idea of processing math and thinking it out in your head, all of the various aspects and steps, writing it out in long explanations on paper instead of 2 + 2 is 4. If you put 4, you miss the problem. Can you believe that? That's what's happening. Now, there's a reason. I understand the reason. It doesn't fit for children. If you're getting a math degree in college, fine. Understand these processes better. But we need children who can quickly and automatically add, subtract, multiply, and divide. But one of the proponents pushing Common Core, and Kane, a superintendent in Stillwater, said on OETA, so I'll repeat it, that is drill and kill if you do flashcards. If you do math facts, fast learning of the answer, that is drill and kill or drill and skill. People say it both ways. Because it's traditional education. Well, some traditional things work real good, and we don't need to change it if it doesn't need to be fixed. So while we're making education better in Oklahoma, we must stop and unhook from Common Core this high-stakes testing, which is not set up properly, and I know that it's not all our superintendent's responsibility, or it's certainly not all her plan, because it was there in Chicago when I went in 1995 and all the time I ran. When I was in Chicago, I said, in a group, we had a circle meeting at the end of one day. We'd have a long day of presentations. Mark Tucker was there from the National Center for Education and the Economy. Hillary Clinton was on his board. It's a Carnegie-funded institute. He was there because he was driving that agenda. He's still driving parts of Common Core through Achieve. Achieve is the nonprofit organization that wrote the standards that the NGA approved. Achieve has, as the head of it, a man named Michael Cohen, who Mark Tucker wrote about after Hillary and Bill Clinton were in the presidential office. And Mark Tucker's letter is an 18-page letter laying out the plan that they developed for education and the economy. Remember, labor and education. It's an 18-page letter. It's called the Dear Hillary letter, just to remember, if you want to enter that and search it on the web. But it was entered into congressional record by a congressman from Colorado, who is now the head of the State School Board Association, Bob Schaefer in Colorado. So these things are valid. You can check them out for yourself. Back to the NGA meeting, I said they were trying to persuade us of how important we were, first of all. You know how they do you? At those meetings, you're important. Boy, you advise the governor. We want to go right on into this plan. We've got it so well developed, and you'll be successful, and, here it is laying before you. Well, I had just run statewide opposing this. Would I sit there and agree to it? No, and Governor Keating knew I wouldn't. So I just raised my hand and I said, I'm sorry, but in the state of Oklahoma, I do not believe Governor Keating will be doing this plan at all. Next to me was George Allen from Virginia, his Secretary of Education, Beverly Scrow. She said, well, Governor Allen will not be doing this in Virginia, very boldly. And across from us was New Hampshire, Stephen Merrill's education advisor. And she said, in New Hampshire, we say, don't tread on me. So that was a three-way agreement. I didn't even know they'd say that. They didn't know I'd say it, and I didn't either. But there we were. We put it down. They didn't push it anymore at that meeting. But right after that, Achieved was formed. And there goes the rest of the story. If you can follow my line there, but you can check these things out for yourself. There's a lot to talk about, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Well, we can go ahead and ask later.
Okay. Yeah,
Janet, would you care if we ask the questions later after you speak, or both of you, or would you like to?
No, that's fine.
Okay, good. Then come on out, Janet. The only Janet. And so, thank you for coming.
Well, thank you so much for coming out today on a Saturday. I also appreciate it. A little bit of a rainy start to the day, but we're blessed with rain in Oklahoma. Anytime you're blessed with rain, you stop for a moment and give thanks for the rain, I can tell you. Because I do travel all over the state, and I see the effects of the drought in the state. As a matter of fact, I'm in at least one school district a week. Monday, I'll be in Tushka schools. Anybody know where Tushka schools are? It's going to be fun. I get to go back in January for the grand opening of their new school, the one that was devastated by a tornado. They're going to be opening the brand new school down there. It's an incredible miracle about what's happened down there. And I can tell you, again, just like Oklahomans always do, those folks rolled up their sleeves and they rebuilt. And it is something that is a wonder to see. I get to go down there. And it's called the Raise the Grade Tour. I go to a district a week and we talk about the 8th Rift Grade Park because I'm not shy of talking about accountability. But I don't know why I'm going down there for the Raise the Grade Tour because they got all A's. Every site got an A. But we're going to go down there and celebrate with them and have a good time and pat some teachers on the back, and parents and kids and everyone down there. It's a great story down there. My name is Janet Barresi. I'm looking at a lot of familiar faces that were so great and helped me so much in my first race. But for those of you that are here for the first time, let me just very quickly tell you a little bit about myself. We've got information on my campaign website and on the department website. I actually began this as a mom. I was a mom in Northwest Oklahoma City concerned about the education my children would not be getting once they went to middle school. They were in a grade school that was a very good grade school in Oklahoma City. And my husband and I were committed to public education for our kids. We liked the well-rounded approach that they were going to get in public education. And at the time, they were in our church school, and they had some reading problems, and the church school said, we can't help them with that. And so we took them to the public school and found out that they were getting great benefit from it. We were comfortable that we could give them their faith-based education easily at home, and indeed we did do that. And I continue to be proud of my sons and the leadership positions they're taking in their church as well. Then I said, you know, it's got to be better. And I got together with a group of parents, and as parents, we developed a new school for Oklahoma City. It's Independence Enterprise Middle School. Long story short, I helped write and get passage of the state's charter school law because I believe a parent's right is to choose educational opportunities for their child. And we're still defending that today. I can't talk about it, but I'm a defendant in a lawsuit brought by a bunch of liberal establishment folks that don't believe parents should have the right to choose, and that's the Lindsay Nicole Henry bill. They actually tried to, first of all, sue the parents of handicapped kids And now they can't get with that, so now they're suing me and the State Department of Education and the board, and I can't talk about it, but it's, I'm just walking in faith on this, and I'm sure it'll work out well. But I went forward with that effort on charter schools, and then opened the second one. It was Harding Charter Preparatory High School after independence. And right now it's ranked about 23rd in the country. It's taking kids from a high poverty area of Oklahoma City, and it's focused on rigor. And it's focused on strong accountability. And it's focused on getting the money into the classroom. All of the things that I continue to stand for. And we've got kids that never in their family's history had they had anyone ever go to a college. 38% of the kids this year, that graduated this year, were the first in their family to graduate from a high school. And the rest of them were the first in their families to ever go to college. So I could go on, I'm like a proud mom on both of those schools, and I could go on forever on those. But I had some folks that came to me really tired of the fact that the state was at the bottom academically, that nothing was going forward. Folks, for the last 10 years, about 36% of our kids in 3rd grade were going on to 4th grade, scoring limited knowledge or failing our 3rd grade test. You know what that translates into? That means if you score limited knowledge on our state test right now, you're reading 2 grade levels below. You're going to 4th grade reading on a 2nd grade level. If you fail our state test, you're reading nearly 3 grades below. We're putting kids into a situation where they'll get further and further and further behind. I can predict dropouts from our 3rd grade reading schools. I can predict kids being enrolled in special education. We now think up to 75% of our kids that are in special education programs are there incorrectly. They're there simply because they weren't taught how to read correctly in the way that they learn. All of those things were brought to me, and I was asked to run for this position. And when I came and talked to you the first time, I promised you some things that we would do. And so I want to report back on that. I said we would put rigorous standards in place, and we have done that. And yes, when I got into office, I took a look at a law passed by our duly elected legislature and signed by Governor Henry. And in that were the Common Core standards. Those were Common Core standards for English and math. And those are the only 2 subjects that are the Common Core. You're hearing about other things, but that is it for the Common Core. So I looked at them, and I promised you rigor. And so I looked at it through that lens, but I looked through it through a more important lens. I looked at it through an Oklahoma lens. And I looked at what it had. And I knew that they were rigorous. And I talked to other people that I got advice from, and I got some people that said, I'm a little bit concerned about this, but others said, this is going to get our kids ahead. Because I'm going to talk about the skills that they're going to need to be able to build their families and build their communities and take care of themselves and not be on social programs. We're going to talk about those skills in just a minute. And so I looked at English and I looked at math and I said, okay, these are rigorous and we're going to go forward with this. But then I looked at the next generation standards for science and for social studies. And I said, that's not Oklahoma. And the legislature voted on the Common Core, but they didn't vote on next generation. And so what I said, this is not Oklahoma. And so we set on the process of rewriting our state social studies standards because they were full of pop culture. And they didn't focus on some very important things. And so as I sat down with my social studies director, I said, I want you to get folks from all over the state. I want you to get college professors, get a couple of those in there. I want classroom teachers from across all the grade bands. I want classroom teachers in there. I want citizens in there. I want you to try to go out and seek everybody you possibly can to be part of this effort. And he was able to put together a committee of 60 individuals that focused on this. And then I said, tell the American story. Tell the American story. And that's what we went about to do. I ask you and implore you to take a look at those standards. And we have actually been getting a lot of praise from outside the state for the quality of our social studies standards. Because they do focus that give us time to talk about that unique heritage of this country. I said, we've got to talk about American exceptionalism. Tell the story. Tell the fact that the founding fathers stepped off a personal cliff and risked their lives, risked their fortunes to fight for something they believed in, to stand their ground and to fight for something they believed in. That's what we're going about. So Marilyn Monroe and pop culture is pushed to the wayside, and we're focused more on real history. And then we got to science. And I took a look at the next generation science standards, and I said, no, that's not Oklahoma. Because did you know that global warming is the cause of all of our ills in the United States? Well, that's all that was through it, plus evolution was all the way through it. And there were some other things about carbon footprints and how evil the oil and gas industry is and all of this. And I said, you know, that's first of all, it's not the truth. That's not Oklahoma. And so we went about the same process we did for social studies, got together a diverse group of individuals and rewrote our state science standards. Now, they're going to be released at the end of this month. And we're going to do the best we can to advertise their release so you'll know. And I am asking you, as I've asked every group, to go online and to review them. And you will find that you will have a place in there where you can comment. We're going to ask you to be very specific. So when you see the standards, we're going to ask you to be specific about what you have a problem with that particular standard. Because when you put that comment in, then we comment back. Because when you go through public comment, you actually change what you're doing in response to public comment. I know I'm getting too detailed for y'all, but it's really important. We want your comments. We want to know what you think, and that's going to go to the legislature. So we are going about the work of helping teachers transition to that. And they are shifting the way they teach in the classrooms. So instead of just drilling facts into kids for a memory test, they're focused on something very, very critical, developing thinking skills. It's a muscle, folks. You have to develop it. You have to teach kids how to think critically, how to solve problems, how to think on their feet. Because these are the skills that they are going to need. All of you, think about it, no matter what business you're in successful businesses, you know that you have to put a bunch of different facts together, consider them all, and figure out what's the best for you. There's so many of our kids graduating from our high schools that can't do that. And that's not right. That's not right to ask them to go out into the world unequipped, unable to be able to take facts, put them together, and make decisions. And that's what makes those standards so rigorous, is because teachers are now going more to a Socratic method. They're asking students, and I will differ with Linda here. No, 2 + 2 is 4. No, that is the right answer, and that's what they'll be counted on. But they'll also be asked to show how they came to that answer. So maybe they'll have to draw 2 blocks, and then 2 blocks more to show that they understand that concept. But they will be drilled on it. Heck, I remember the day sitting at the kitchen table with my mom doing the flashcards. Addition, subtraction, multiplication. I remember those days, and my dad too. There was 20 minutes of that every single day. Although I had 5 brothers and sisters, I was still sitting there with the flashcards, and I remember that. But I also remember my mom took time to show me the concept behind it, so I could use that and graduate on to the next level of mathematics. She taught me how to think about it, and that's what I remember. So I promised you we'd be doing rigorous standards, and I said with it goes the assessments. And you're right, we've raised the bar on the assessments. I promised you that, and we have. This year in writing and this year in science, we raised the bar. And performance dropped. And it has done that in every state in the nation that has done that. It's because when you take a look at our performance and what we need for our kids to be ready for the world, you will see that we are far behind the rest of the country. Folks, it is not a happy thing to say, but with our education system and the way it has been, in the last 3 decades, we have fallen backwards. We are not teaching our kids the rigor that they need to have. We are not teaching them how to think. Not what to think, but how to think. How to solve problems. And we either go forward as a country and are able to compete, or we don't. I'm going to get back to that a little bit more in just a minute. I told you we put in a system of accountability and transparency. There's one thing that the education establishment doesn't want. They do not want accountability and transparency. Before I came into office, we had an accountability system. It was called the API system, Academic Performance Index. And so every year you saw a number about how your school was doing, 1,100. So you look at that and you go, okay, it's 1,100. And then you might have some more information. It says it's out of 1,500 possible points. And you say, okay, that's going to tell me a little bit more. Folks, we took that system and all the components that went into it, and we made it into a system that gives you a relatable grade, because that 1,100 was equivalent to a C-. What does that say to you now? That's relatable. You understand that, and you start asking questions. Now, the superintendents that didn't like the fact, didn't want you to know if parents were participating or not in their school, didn't want you to know about other programs that were doing in their school. They went to the legislature and had all that taken out. Now it's just focused on academics. That's fine. I can live with that. But it doesn't give you an idea of the overall work that's going on in the school. And so parents have to work a little bit harder now. They're getting the grade, and we're asking them to go to their principal and their teachers and to talk about everything else. But the one thing that grade card doesn't do is it doesn't hide children in poverty. And you know, the establishment came out with this A through F report by a bunch of college researchers. And if you read between the lines and if you take a look at it, it was a concerted effort to hide children in poverty. They didn't want children included that moved, that were in the district less than 2 years. Kids in poverty move a lot. And they wanted the counting side, that it's called the N size, the amount of the population, to be this really high number. Well, folks, I have only 100 school districts that have 1,000 or more kids. My smallest school district has 49 children. It's about 250 kids. 300 kids is about the average size of a rural school district, and some even smaller than that. They wouldn't even count it. You wouldn't even know what their performance was. And so we put out a grade card that counts every child. And we're asking parents, grandparents, community people to work with the teachers and with the principals towards continual improvement in the state. And I'm not going to apologize for that grade card, because it gives us an idea of exactly where we need to go to help improve our schools. Transparency. I said we do everything in the open. And I have released so much information about the inner workings of the department. I put things online I've asked you to review. And we did that with the grade card. Everything came out in the open. And as you saw grades developing, you actually saw them changing live in that time. We made a couple mistakes in putting it out, quickly fixed that, but everything else you saw was live on that. And the education establishment doesn't like that. They don't want you to know the truth about how schools are doing. I told you we'd focus on reading, and I just talked about reading. For 10 years, scores were flat for 10 years. If you can't read, you can't do anything else. That's job one. And so we've implemented a plan to really focus on the fact that kids learn to read differently. And I was able to get 60 coaches out into the state to help teachers help kids read with new reading strategies. And we're focused on improving that. This year is the first year that if third graders can't read on the third grade level, then they don't get promoted. Sounds tough? In every state that has done this, their reading scores have improved dramatically. And we're already seeing improvement in that. We need to get these kids out of special education. We need to help them learn to read and to take responsibility for their education. Folks, I told you that we'd make sure that a high school diploma meant something by the enforcement of achieving classroom excellence and making sure that students pass an end of instruction exam. And we're doing that. I was told there will be 2,000 to 3,000 appeals of kids not making it through in the first year for the state board. We had 143. This is the second year. You know how many kids have appealed? 11. You seen the scores lately in Algebra 2, Algebra 1, Geometry, History, Biology? You seen those scores? They're going way up. Algebra 2 increased 22% in 3 years. If you don't measure it, it doesn't matter. And that's what we're focused on. Now, I got another great card. I don't know if y'all noticed, but a week ago Friday, I got another great card. And it wasn't an A. And I'm really proud of that great card. Because liberal unions gave me an F. And I said, hallelujah. Hallelujah. I got an F from the liberal unions. On the board of OEA in Oklahoma City is a member on that board that is national chairman of National Committee for Social Justice. Have you ever read their platform? It's about abortion. It's about the free use of condoms in schools. It talks about every liberal agenda that there is, redistribution of wealth. That person is sitting on the board of the OEA. Dadgum right, I'm glad I got an F, because it means I'm doing my job. I will be damned if we're going to lose another generation of children in this state. That's the work I'm doing. But they don't want you to know how schools are doing. They want to dumb things down. They want to be allowed to control your schools. We may agree or disagree on the Common Core, and I can tell you one thing. We picked up the good parts of it, and I looked at Park, and I said, this state cannot be doing that. So we pulled, I talked to Governor Fallon about it, she completely agreed, and we pulled out of Park. So when you talk about the Common Core, you're just talking about standards. And I will respectfully disagree. The curriculum is decided on by the teacher in the classroom with the leadership of their principal and under the direction of their locally elected school board. You talk about something that's local control. It's always been there. Now it's better defined. Let's talk about the future for this state. Governor Fallon is chairman of the National Governors Association, and it is school to work. Now remember, this is a woman that came into the state at a time when we had $2.60 in the rainy day fund. I think we're up to $600 million now. We talk about what we need to be able to continue to populate wealth-generating types of, we call it ecosystems within the state. That's agriculture, that's the energy industry, that is transportation, the ecosystems that create wealth for this state and what we need. Now, here's the real facts, folks. This is the facts. Of those in Oklahoma with a high school diploma or less, 2/3 of them make $25,000 a year or less. Can you build a family on that? Can you build a community on that? I see an increase in our social services to those individuals. What we are producing now is not near what we need to produce. The new minimum for this state and this country is not a high school diploma. It's 1 year of postgraduate work or an industry certification coming from a career tech. That is the new minimum. 49% of what we will need to produce in this state is 1 year of postgraduate work or an industry certification. If you come out of school with a high school diploma, it simply is not enough to get you the kind of wages that will help you support your family and build your communities. It simply is not enough. That's why we're focused on this. And all the work we're doing together with Career Tech. Bob Summers and I are working very, very closely Because folks, college and career ready now do have to mean the same thing. These industries are coming in and they are focused on giving our young people jobs that have gone through that career training, but they have to have the intellectual flexibility and ability to continue to train with the job, because those jobs continue to move forward. It's very exciting what's coming ahead for kids. I had the incredible, I always say I see a miracle a day, and I'll tell you what, I was seeing one yesterday at Grant High School, one of the lowest performing high schools in the state of Oklahoma, 100% free and reduced rate, largely Hispanic population, lowest performing high school in the state 5 years ago. You talk about a transformation. They missed an A by 1 point. And I was in there celebrating with them. And it's not any kind of social program. They got a principal that got a hold of those kids and would not let go. And defied the administration, was threatened with firing 3 times until good people got between her and the administration and said, we're going to let her do her job. They have kids that are now entering a program called the Advanced Placement Curriculum. These are young people that will be taking college-level courses in high school. And by the time they leave, they're going to be leaving with college credit hours in their pocket. These are kids in poverty. So they're going into college, and many of them will enter as sophomores. Think about the money that's saving the state and their families. It opens up the doors for them, and it opens up opportunities. But here's a very important point. It's being supported by the Boeing Corporation. Oh, that's evil. Putting together corporations with state money. Well, here's the reason why. Talk to the folks from Northrop Grumman and Boeing. If they get a Department of Defense contract, they're capped on the number of individuals that they can hire that don't have U.S. citizenship. They can't find enough qualified Americans to fill the jobs. That's not a rumor, that's fact. And they are coming in and actively supporting advanced placement curriculum, rigorous standards, so we can have Americans fill these critical jobs to defend our country. They're scared. They said if a young American takes an engineering major, they'll be hired before they're out of college and they'll probably get a signing bonus. By the year 2020, 81,000 jobs will become available in the state of Oklahoma in science, technology, engineering, and math field. 81,000 jobs. You know what the median salary is going to be? $71,000. That's a little bit more than most of those kids at U.S. Grant have ever seen in their life. And it will take an impoverished community and it will transform it like it's already transformed that school. And I won't apologize for focusing on rigor. The reason I took this job is because I believe that every child can learn. Every child has a right to the American promise. And I will not back off of that. I will take the unions on proudly. I will take the establishment on proudly. And I will continue to move forward. And I can tell you who I got walking right next to me. And it's Governor Fallon. She supports everything we're doing. As a matter of fact, she has actually directed me to be sure that I work very closely with Bob Summers, her Secretary of Education, and making sure that Oklahoma kids are prepared for tomorrow. Because if we don't continue to move forward, the state is going to start falling backwards. And I'm telling you folks, because we have a balanced budget, you don't know how much better off we are. And those are conservative principles, because I see chiefs from other states that are dealing with huge deficits. We are so much better off. Now let me talk to you about budget real quick, and then we'll get to taking some questions. First of all, let me tell you this. This state has a historic high of carryover for districts. It has gone up a breathtaking amount in the last 3 years. Get this, folks. Districts are holding back $770 million, and the number keeps going up, that are not going into the classroom. Now, I will grant you, there are some things that you have to do to run a district. You've got to make sure you have 3 pay periods of pay from the end of June through the middle of August. That's appropriate, and they should hold that back. You got to have some money for your deductible on your insurance. And then you've got to have a little bit put aside for emergencies. Will not argue with that, and that is absolutely appropriate. But when I see districts taking money that we put out for professional development to help teachers, and they put it in their carryover, that's when I draw the line. When I see that over half of their discretionary dollars are not spent in the classroom, that's when I draw the line. And that's why I called for a pay stipend, increased pay stipend for teachers at $2,000 for this year. I'm asking them, just take 10% of that carryover amount, just 10%. They're still left with record highs. And take just 2%, redirect 2% of their discretionary dollars, and we can come up with enough money for a $2,000 stipend for every teacher in the state this year. We can do it right now. And it's voluntary, no additional taxes, no additional appropriations from the legislature. It's just using the money effectively. I've already reduced the size of government in the department. I've already done it. I am saving you over $200,000 a month. I'm trying to remember the figure. Over $200,000 a month over my predecessor. I got in that department, and there were folks on the payroll that didn't even know what they were supposed to be doing. They were just political patronage jobs, and we escorted them out of the building. Folks, it's the absolute truth. For 10 days after I was elected, we exited so many people that there were so few people in the building, I actually started answering the phone myself. I don't know who I was, but I helped answer the phone. And we were able to get people in. I said, I'm going to hire people that are not bureaucrats. I want to hire people that get stuff done. And we have done that. And we are so very proud of the work. But this year in the budget, I want to talk to you a little bit about Obamacare. I just thought I wouldn't be talking to you about Obamacare. But Obamacare is robbing the children of Oklahoma of the chance to have appropriate funding for education. And here's the reality. In Oklahoma, the state of Oklahoma fully funds the health insurance for teachers, for full-time employees. Districts are now mandated to cover insurance for part-time employees as well. They can't afford it. So they're moving their part-time employees into full-time positions. We're also estimating a record high 6% increase in premiums for health insurance for the state. You know what that translates into? The increase I have had to ask the legislature for in my budget proposal just for health insurance costs is $59 million. They have to fund that before they can turn around and fund classrooms. And I am so angry. But that is the reality that we're figuring in. I'll show you the worksheets that we've developed around it. $59 million for classrooms. Now, I'm not for taking a bunch of money and throwing it at the classrooms, and that's another thing. It's got the establishment mad. Just give us the money, and then we'll put it into our carryovers, and we'll hide it from the public and not let them know what we're doing it. We fund programs. We fund initiatives. We fund things that work, that we can show you those results. And I won't apologize for that, but right now, that's being hit hard. I'm going to fight for education. I'm going to fight for increased funding, but funding that funds things that work. But right now, it's being heavily handicapped by Obamacare. $59 million. I'd be asking for just under a $20 million increase if it didn't exist. There's your difference. Now, folks, I know it's going to be a tough race. And James, I know you're excited about the increase of Republican registrations, but part of them are by Democrats that are registering Republican for the primary because they know the Democrats are weak this year. And there's an actual concerted effort to get Democrats. Their strategy is to get Democrats to sign up as Republicans for the primary. to get a rhino into office. It's out there, it's in writing. Even a Democrat even said he was running because he didn't think it was right for Democrats to be asked to sign up to be Republicans. Folks, it is tough because this is the future of our children. You know, the executive director of the American Enterprise Institute talked about indices for happiness in this country. And if you take a look at all the research, it comes down to these issues. This is the biggest determiner of happiness. The first determiner of happiness is a strong faith. The second one is a strong relationship with your family. The third one is a strong community that you contribute to. And the fourth is earned success. Not things that are given to you, but earned success. Now, families need to do something about all the rest of that. Faith, family, community. But earned success, parents have a big input too in promoting those kids to do that. But the job of schools is to make sure those kids have the equipment they need to be able to earn that success and to understand what hard work does. And so for that, I will respectfully ask for your vote in this primary. I will respectfully ask you to continue to support me and my work. I get letters from you all the time, and we answer every single one. You may not get it the first day afterwards. You may get it within a week or so because we try to answer every single letter that comes in. And I appreciate those comments. And it has changed policy, the way we think about things, and I appreciate that. But folks, we're improving, things are moving along, and I'm going to ask you, first of all, for your prayers for the teachers of this state, because they've got a lot of hard work ahead of them. I'm going to ask for your prayers for me. I feel it from all over the state. I go all over the state, people tell me that they're praying for me. But I'm going to ask for your vote and ask for your support. Because together, Oklahoma's promise is absolutely unlimited. Thank you, and God bless you.